Oh, can you hear me? Thank you. Today we are going to talk about the assignment 2. Sorry. Okay, let's get started. Today we are going to talk about the assignment 2. Let's check the first question. The first question, briefly explain the impact of the introduction of deposit insurance on the money multiplier and money supply. So first, deposit insurance guarantee depositor can get back all of their money in bank accounts even if the banks are bankrupt. So with this deposit insurance, people will have more confidence in deposit than without, right? So we know people in this class, we suppose that people either hold money or bonds. So two choice, right? I have mentioned before. Okay, money or bonds, and money in this class we focus on M1. M1 equal to CU plus D, currency and deposit, right? So when people hold money, they even hold as currency or as deposit. And now with deposit insurance, people will have more confidence in deposit, right? So you can recall this, we have a smaller c, it was cu over m, and people have more confidence in deposit. They tend to hold more deposit and less currency, right? So with this deposit insurance, this small case c will decrease, right? And this c will affect the money multiplier, right? We call the multiplier, it was 1 over c plus theta times 1 minus c, or theta plus c times 1 minus theta, right? And with the smaller c, this c decrease, this multiplier will decrease, okay? And money supply equal to this multiplier times the high power money, right? H. And with this H remain the same because H is set by central bank, right? So set by central bank. So H unchanged. And this multiplier decrease. Finally, money supply will decrease, right? So this is the logic. People either hold currency or deposit, and with more confidence in deposit, they will hold less currency, then lead to a decrease in this currency ratio, and then the money multiplier would decrease, and with unchanged high power money, finally money supply would decrease. Okay, so this is the first question. And the second question, at the end of 2008, the United States Federal Reserve Board announced a program to purchase various assets such as mortgage-backed securities or even commercial bills from banks, right? So this question asks you to briefly explain how such actions will affect the money supply. So first, you should know what this action mean, right? These actions is the Federal Reserve Board. This is the Central Bank of the United States, right? So this action is actually an OMO, an open market operation, right? Because the central banks buy assets from the commercial banks, securities or commercial bills or bonds. These are all financial assets. So recall what will cause with an OMO. With an OMO, so the Fed buy assets, right? When the central bank buy assets or buy bonds, the reserve of commercial banks in central bank will increase, right? And then this one was a component of the high power money. Recall H equal to Cu plus R, right? And this R increase, then this H high power money will increase. Okay. And again, money supply, it was in a multiplier times H. Okay. And with an unchanged money multiplier, because this multiplier was determined by C and theta, right? And these two either determined by preference or by the target of central bank. So with unchanged C and theta, this multiplier remain the same. So H increase lead to an increase in money supply. Okay. So first, money supply will increase. And further, this question asks you to provide a definition of M1 and explain if the above action will directly affect M1. So first, what's M1? We have said just now M1 is Cu plus D, right? And this action, as I said, the Fed buy assets will increase the reserve of commercial banks, so it directly affects R, not D, right? So R increase. So this was an indirect. When you answer this question, you have to clearly indicate that it was an indirect effect because it affect R, not D. By affect R increase, and to keep theta, because theta, if it was bonding, then it was the target of central bank. So to keep theta the same, then D should increase, right? So this action directly affect R and then affect the deposit D, but not directly affect M1. Okay, so you should clearly indicate this. Many of you will overview this requirement. Okay, so it asks, will this action directly affect M1? Then you should clearly indicate. Okay, so the third question, the general public perceives a possibility of bankruptcy in banks, this time in the absence of deposit insurance because of the surge of bad debts. So how will the money multiplier and money supply be affected? Briefly explain. Then we have said just now, M1 equals CU and D, and the currency ratio C was CU currency over M. Okay, so for the failure of bank failure, people tend to hold more currency, right? Then currency will increase and deposit will decrease, right? So it affects people's preference. So this small cash C will increase, right? With an increase in currency. Okay, so again, the money multiplier, it was 1 over C plus C times 1 theta. This one will increase. Okay, sorry, this one will decrease with an increase in C. So with a decrease in the money multiplier, then money supply will decrease, right? With an unchanged high power money. Okay, so it was just the opposite way of the first question. So this is question A. And then question B, use diagrams to describe how the LM curve will be affected. Please indicate the money market equilibrium interest rate and output clearly in your diagram. So first, let's recall what is an LM curve. LM curve is the relationship between output Y and interest rate I, right? First, in financial market, we have money supply and money demand, right? And money demand can be P times Y times Li, okay? And here is the equilibrium interest rate. And to find a relationship between I and Y, if there is an increase in Y, so if Y increase to Y prime greater than Y, then money demand will increase, right? So to here, and D prime, P times Y prime times Li, right? And then the equilibrium interest rate will be higher. So the relationship is clear. A higher Y will leading to a higher interest rate I, right? So the curve is like this. An upward shift curve is an LM curve. And then let's go back to the question. Question B. So describe how the LM curve will be affected. Okay. So how the LM curve will be affected? In this question, money supply decreased. Let's draw this diagram again. Here is I, M. This time, money supply decreased, right? And money demand unchanged. So initially, interest rate I is here, right? And now with the decrease in money supply, there's an increase in the equilibrium interest rate, right? And then go back to this LM curve. Initially, LM curve is here. And with the decrease in money supply, the interest rate increased while the output remain the same, right? So for any level of y, so for a given level of y, I is higher, right? To I prime. And this relationship holds for any level of y, right? So it should be an upward shift of LM curve, right? There's a question. For 3B, can I display the change in the original diagram? Sure. You can draw it here. Yeah, you can just draw it like this. Because you don't have to draw how. I just show you how we get the LM curve. So these diagram are not required. You just draw this diagram and this diagram, and you'll be okay. So yes, with the decrease in money supply, there is an upward shift of LM curve, because with any fixed level of y, we will have a higher interest rate, okay? So you just draw these two diagrams, financial market and this LM curve, and indicates the equilibrium and equilibrium output. The most important one is you should indicate that the equilibrium output is unchanged. This one is remember the same. So at this the same level of y, we have a higher interest rate, okay? So this is why the question asks you to indicate the equilibrium interest rate and output clearly, okay? So let's go to the fourth question. People normally invest in various financial assets, including bonds. Meanwhile, they hold money to facilitate transactions. So in this question, in our class, we said, and I said just now, people hold bond and money. And here, he expand the concept to financial assets. Bond is this one. It's one component of financial assets, okay? So here we just have more components of financial assets like securities or commercial bills, okay? But basically they are the same. Then for this question, people either hold financial assets or hold money, okay? And then let's go back to the question. The right and obligations of holding financial assets are specified in financial contracts. Now, legal experts discover a major shortcoming in these contracts. So here is a shortcoming, which implies asset holders will suffer from higher risk. Then what's the impact on the money demand upon an announcement of the funding? then, as I said, people have two choices: either have financial assets or hold financial assets or hold money. And now, a higher risk of financial market or financial assets will lead to a decrease in the demand of these assets. Right? Because now holding this financial assets is much more risk. People tend to hold more money, so the demand of financial assets decrease. And because people only have two choices, either financial assets or money, then with a decrease in the demand of financial assets, the demand of money MD increase. Okay. And if you use a specific functional form, like take this one as an example, we in the financial market we write money demand like this: P times Y times LI. And with a specific functional form, you could use this one. This LI can be phi over I, right? And here, this phi measure the risk. Okay. And now phi increase, LI increase at any level of interest rate I, right? So leading to an increase in money demand. Okay, if we this is just an example for this specific functional form. You could have other specification, but take this as an example, it will be clear. So the basic logic is with a higher risk, the demand of financial assets decrease, so the demand of money will increase. Okay. And then let's go back to the question. How question B, how LM curve will be affected? Assume a fixed money supply. Draw a diagram to illustrate. You should also draw a diagram for money market. So again, we should use the diagram. So it was just like this. First, you should draw the diagram for financial market. This one, money supply and money demand here, right? And now this money supply is fixed as said in the question, and we have said just now here we have an increase in the money demand, right? So if you write this, just P times Y times LI. Here is an increase in this LI at any level of I, right? So here is an rightward shift of money demand. Okay. With the rightward shift of money demand, the interest rate I will increase. Okay. And then we go to the LM curve. Again, this one was just increase in this LI in this component because resulted from the increase of the risk. Okay, so again, output is the same, unchanged. Okay, so with an unchanged output, we have a higher interest rate here, right? We have a higher interest rate, then it should be an upward shift term curve, right? So 2 point. First, money supply unchanged, and second, the risk just affect this component Li, right? So the output Y is unchanged. You should clearly indicate these 2 points, okay, to answer this question. Okay, so we have finished today's content. It was relatively easy because question is shorter. So if you have any question, you can stay and ask. You can unmute yourself. If not, you can leave now. Thank you.
你好，听到我吗
？Yes，可以。
好谢谢你的分享。但是呢，我想问第一题，为什么 money supply 会减少呢？因为我觉得如果现在有这个保险的话呢，人民会愿意放更多的钱去银行，所以呢 C 会减少，所以最后money supply 会增加。
对，我刚说的是 money supply 会减少吗？
好像是。
Ready？ 我刚好像擦掉了，但是就是 yes， 没错，这个 small cat C 会减少，因为 CU 和 D 嘛。现在对于 deposit 的 confidence 增加了，所以这个 D 会增加嘛，所以这个 C 会减小。So 然后 multiplier 会这个 multiplier 会增大嘛？然后 H 不变的情况下 ，money supply 就增加了。我刚刚说反了吗？
对，好像是。
OK。
好像在聊天室有人分享了那个荧幕截图。
OK， 我看一下。所以我前面这个应该是有说对的吧？就是这个 C 应该是减小了的，那 C 减小了，这个 multiplier 就增加了。
对，
然后 money supply 最后会增加。刚可能说错了是吗？
好
，sorry。
对，应该是。好，谢谢你那么我还有一个问题想问，就是第二题呢如果我从另外一个角度去解释money supply 增加的话，可以这样说吗？就是由于
稍等一下。
好。
有人说
Okay, let us speak English.
I will speak English. Okay, so the student said I have made mistake just now. So the logic is with more confidence in deposit, people tend to hold more deposit and hold less currency. So this small cat C will decrease, and with a decrease in this small cat C, the money multiplier will increase, and at the same time with an unchanged hyper money, the money supply will increase. So I don't know, I made mistake in which steps, but the answer is finally the multiplier will increase and the money supply will increase. Maybe I said decrease just now, so a clarification. Okay, the money supply will increase and the money multiplier will increase. Okay, and okay, you can go on.
For question 2, can I explain the increase in money supply from another angle? Is that as commercial bills are charged from banks, so the banks need to keep a smaller fraction of deposits, which means theta decreases, and this leads to an increases in money multiplier and also an increase in money supply. Can I use this angle to explain?
the multiplier should remain the same because first this small case c is unchanged, right? This one is the determined by the preference of the public, okay? And this theta, we have two situations. First, if for example, if the central bank set a target of 50% of this theta, and the preference of commercial bank is 20%, then it was not binding. Then this one was determined by the preference of the commercial banks. Then they will hold 20%. And if this one is binding, then it was a target of the central bank. And with an OMO, there's no change in this target of central bank. So this theta is fixed. It doesn't change in this question. So for any change of R, the deposit D would change accordingly. The commercial bank will change the deposit they hold to meet the requirement of the theta, okay, the reserve ratio. You can yes, you can think it was the bonding case. There is the target of the central bank. They require the commercial bank to hold of reserve, and now with the increase in R, right? This the commercial bank just want hold 5% of the reserve, and now with the increase in the reserve R, the theta increase, but the requirement is just 10%, so they tend to increase the deposit and to hold the theta to remain in 10%. Okay, so finally the theta will not change. It was either determined by the preference of commercial banks or the target of central banks. But in this question, it is just an OMO. It has nothing to do with the theta. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, in what situation will theta change?
Like the commercial banks, or if the economy is better, so the commercial banks want to make more loans, then their preference change in a better economy situation, or in sometimes the central bank want to like encourage investment or something. They want to increase the money supply. They can change this theta to affect the money supply. So it was a policy target. The central bank can set this target to they have two ways to affect the money supply, either by OMO, or they can change the policy target. They can change this required reserve ratio. And so only in these two cases, either the central bank change the requirement or there's change in preference of commercial banks. Either situation, the question should clearly state these two situations, so you know the theta change.
Okay, thank you.
Let me check. Okay. So yes, I made a mistake. With a decrease in C, there should be an increase in money supply. In multiplier, I write a decrease. Sorry.
那我没有其他问题了啊，谢谢你的回答，再见，再见。
Okay, you're welcome. Why R increase indirectly? R increase directly, but D increase indirectly. This question is asked, will affect M1 directly or not? M1 is CU and D. This OMO directly affect R, and with an increase in R, D increase. So it was indirectly affect M1. Okay. So R increased directly and D increased indirectly. So M1 is affect indirectly. Oh, sorry, here is a y-axis curve not mentioned in Q4. Yes, so I have answered the first question. Sorry, I didn't see your question just now. Y-axis curve not mentioned in question 4. Question 4. Yes, because IS curve is about the goods market, and this question is just about the financial market. And here it has nothing to do with the goods market. And the question only asks you about how the LM curve will be affected. But even if we ask about IS curve, the IS curve is not affected. Okay, the IS curve is determined in the goods market, not in financial market. Sorry, I didn't see your question just now.
Hello, sorry. I'm the one who asking about question 4.
Question 4, yes.
What I mean is that if we draw IS curve in the graph, and for the IS curve is downward sloping, so that the output should decrease. Yes.
Sorry. Some connective problem. I didn't hear you clearly. Can you say it again?
Just now you mentioned that if the IS curve, even IS curve is drawn in the graph, and it will not affect the result. But in fact that the IS curve is downward sloping.
Yes.
So if we draw it in the graph, the output should decrease.
Okay, I know. You want to, yes, I know. You want to say I draw less, so finally the equilibrium output should decrease, right?
Yes.
Yes, the equilibrium output would decrease in finally, but this question is, yes. So this question is how LM curve will be affected, assume affects money supply. So when I say the equilibrium output is unchanged, I said in the equilibrium of financial market, with a change in the risk, the output is unchanged when the financial market is in equilibrium. Only consider the financial market. So with at any given level of output, we have an increase in I. So it was an upward shift in LM curve. And so this was just about the financial market. And if you consider the IS curve at the same time, you consider two markets, then finally the equilibrium output will decrease. So you are right. By unchanged output, I just said for this risk, for this increase of risk, the LM curve will shift up at any given level of Y. Okay, so this unchanged output just means at any given level of Y, we have an increase in I. Did I say it clearly?
So we only consider the effect towards I in this question when we mention the financial market.
Yes. Yes, because this question it just asks about how LM curve will be affected. So I just use unchanged output or equilibrium output unchanged. It's just with the equilibrium of financial market. Yes, so I should say it more clearly. If you consider goods market, finally the output will decrease. But as I said an output unchanged just means with unchanged output at any given level of output, the interest rate increase. So here is an upward shift of LM curve. I just want to state this point, so I said unchanged output. But if you consider two markets at the same time, yes, actually, finally, the equilibrium output will decrease.
Okay, I get. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.